Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Margaret Morrill, and I'm a member of the Greater Concord Interfaith Council and representing Christ the King Parish here in Concord, New Hampshire. And I want to welcome everybody to the fourth in our series of Lenten Luncheons for this year. And these luncheons have been held for many years, in Concord, sponsored by the Interfaith Council, and have afforded an opportunity for fellowship and enrichment, as we go along our spiritual journey during the season of Lent and also, beyond Lent. And ordinarily, we also have an opportunity to share a meal together, but because of the pandemic, we've had to forego that. But we're pleased to welcome those of you who can participate here on Zoom. And also, this session is being recorded and will be available afterwards on the Greater Concord Interfaith Council's website through YouTube. So we welcome today Rabbi Pam Frydman and also Rick Yeames, who is the Vice President of our Greater Concord Interfaith Council. And they're going to be sharing information about United Religions Initiative. And also we're happy to have here Reverend Stephanie Rutt, who is going to offer our opening prayer in a few minutes. I just wanted to mention that these Lenten Luncheon programs are free, but if you wish, you do have the opportunity to donate to Bridget's House of Hope, which is a new shelter here in New Hampshire for victims of human trafficking, and or you can donate to Church World Services Afghan Refugee Program, which we'll be hearing more about next week at our last Lenten Luncheon. But information on how to donate is available on the Greater Concord Interfaith Council's website. So without further ado, and I want to thank Eleanor Kimball and Chris Paul and Dory Bongiovanni for all the support they provided, including tech support to make these luncheons possible. And so I will ask Stephanie to offer our opening prayer.
Thank you. I thank you, God, for this amazing day, for the leaping greenly spirits of trees and a blue, true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I who have died am alive again today, and this is the sun's birthday, the birthday of life and of love and of wings and of the gay, great, illimitably earth. How should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing, any lifting from the no of all, nothing, human merely being, doubt unimaginable you? Now the ears of my ears awake, and the eyes of my eyes are opened. The words of E. E. Cummings. Amen.
Amen. I want to thank Margaret for your beautiful opening and thank Chris and Eleanor and Dory for making the series possible. I want to also acknowledge and thank my partners here, Rick Yeames and Tahil Sharma. Tahil is the North American Regional Coordinator for United Religions Initiative. He's in charge of all the cooperation circles in United Religions Initiative in both the United States and Canada. And as we mentioned when we met on the 22nd, Mexico is part of the Latin American region because linguistically and culturally, it works very well for the people in Mexico and the Caribbean to be part of that Latin American region. And Rick is, as we know him here, of course, our vice president at GCIC, and soon to be, with God's help, president-elect, and also an ambassador in New England for United Religions Initiative. And so our presentation is going to have three parts. I want to first call on Rick, who's going to share something very personal. Some of it may be very familiar to you and some new. And then I'm going to turn it over to Tahil, who's going to touch on aspects of United Religions Initiative. And then I'll come back and speak a bit more, and we'll make my part interactive. So we'll be taking questions, but also comments, because many of you were always also with us on the 22nd. And so you may be providing wisdom for us now and not just questions, and we look forward to that. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Rick for your presentation.
Thank you, Pam. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rick Yeames, and I'd like to thank the Lenten Lunch Committee for inviting me to speak today about my faith journey and the United Religions Initiative. Currently, I am a member of the Unitarian Universalist Concord Faith Community and have the privilege of serving as the Vice President, President-elect of the Greater Concord Interfaith Council. For the past several years, I have represented United Religions Initiative on our council, previously led efforts to have us become the first URI cooperation circle here in New Hampshire, and have held the title of URI New England Ambassador. I have also worked closely with fellow URI Cooperation Circle Abbey of Hope, located in Portland, Maine. Admittedly, over the past 2 years, my efforts to increase interfaith networking here in New Hampshire and across New England have been minimized due to COVID concerns. Hopefully, with this event and decreasing COVID influence, we can all work together to increase interfaith connecting here in New Hampshire and beyond. I was born and raised in West Hartford, Connecticut, and grew up attending an Episcopal church. I attended UConn and graduated with a BS in biology in 1981. As a lifelong helper, I worked in various medical jobs for the next 5 years until landing in my career with Domino's Pizza. I became a Domino's Pizza franchisee in 1990 and currently own 2 stores here in Concord. I'm extremely fortunate that both my stores are doing well, which allows me to pursue a lay ministry of interfaith networking and peace, along with a third passion of chasing solar eclipses. About a decade ago, I started networking in earnest, beginning with joining a BNI, Business Networking International, local chapter here in Concord, and holding the pizza delivery seat. Attending over 400 meetings in 8 years allowed me to practice and fine-tune my networking skills. During this time, I started my peace ministry, became interfaith, and discovered what unites us is far greater than what divides us. Along the way, I founded the Domino's Logo Network for owners of 1, 2, and 3 Domino's shops, a piece of pizza for peace.org, and the New Hampshire Solar Eclipse Task Force. Networking for the benefit of us all, our upcoming Monday, April 8th, 2024, total solar eclipse. Additionally, I'm a board member of the Unitarian Universalist Peace Ministry Network and a founding member of the New York City group of the Association of Transformational Leaders. Honestly, my wife Dawn likes to say, I dream in transformational networking. Today, I am known as the Pied Piper of pizza, peace, and solar eclipses, and I'm always looking to expand my and all my partners' networks. My mission for New Hampshire Interfaith Networking and United Religions Initiative is to simply have us all connect with one another, share our stories, and realize, again, that what unites us all is far, far greater than what divides us. In our Greater Concord Interfaith Council, my particular favorite activity, the event I have helped plan for years, is our Interfaith Thanksgiving Gathering. This annual event combines 3 of my favorite passions: gratitude, interfaith, and spirituality. In closing, I want to share a spiritual teaching that I learned a long time ago. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. These days, I can't think of many things we have farther to go to than achieving peace. Thank you all again for joining us, and please don't hesitate to reach out to Pam or myself with all your thoughts, questions, and ideas about New Hampshire Interfaith Networking and United Religions Initiative moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Before I turn it over to Tahil, I want to do two things. One is I want to acknowledge that in our work and in our lives, we have logistical bookends and we have spiritual bookends. So today, Chris started us and organized us, and Margaret opened, and later on we'll have a closure. And then in the spiritual bookends, Stephanie read that beautiful poem of E.E. Cummings, and later Eleanor will lead us. And although we don't usually do that, have a closing at the Lenten Luncheon, but I wanted to see us do that today because this is part of how URI functions. And it doesn't mean that every time we have a URI event, we need to start and end with prayer, but we start and end with unity. And what happens in the middle may be diverse, and there may even be disagreements because we're human and imperfections, something could go wrong. But we begin and we end with our humanhood. And I want to ask that we take a moment to extend the energy of the opening prayer and Rick's words to just feel peace and send peace everywhere. We know it's needed in Ukraine. We know it's needed in Russia too, of course, in Yemen, in Syria, in so many places in the world. Let's just take a very brief moment and focus on peace. In unison with the will of all and with the will of God, we will to have peace. Thank you. And now to you, Tahil. Welcome from California.
Thank you so much, Pam, and good afternoon, everyone. Still morning here, so please excuse my lack of emotional presence. I am not a morning person generally, even if it's after 9 o'clock in the morning, but it's an immense pleasure to be with you all this morning. As I was introduced, I'm the regional coordinator for North America at the United Religions Initiative. I was born here in Southern California to a Hindu father and a Sikh mother. So interfaith cooperation has probably been one of the earliest things I've been exposed to in my life. And it's now become a passion and a profession for the past 10 years. So it's my pleasure today to be able to make this presentation to you all about the United Religions Initiative. And that would require someone letting me share my screen because it's disabled on my end right now.
Chris, can you make him a co-host? Because I won't be able to. Thanks so much. She's working on it.
I've just allowed screen sharing, so you should be good.
Great. Thank you. Piece of cake. There we go. Perfect. Can everyone see my screen? Well, now it's black, but can now everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So yes, we welcome you all this morning to this presentation on URI, the United Religions Initiative, which is recognized as the world's largest network of grassroots interfaith organizations. We have about 1,096 chapters, what we call cooperation circles, in 111 countries. So when we say we are a big network, we are not joking around. We have the involvement of hundreds of individual members who can also join, which means that people who may not be associated with our chapter organizations still have an opportunity to connect with the work and the activities that are happening at URI. URI was originally founded by Bishop William Swing, who is the former Episcopal Bishop of California. He had this story that I'm about to share in a couple of minutes about trying to create what we could consider the United Nations of faith and spirituality for all people to participate in. And the intent was really simple. It was to promote an enduring daily interfaith cooperation, to end religiously motivated violence, and to create cultures of peace, justice, and healing for the earth and all living beings. And the bigger question that Bishop Swing was able to ask and get some answer is, how would this happen? And I'm about to share this story through the lens of a snippet of a documentary from the Visionary series, which many of you may know of is involved with PBS. We had an opportunity to have URI profiled as one of their main stories in 2020. And we want to take this opportunity to share a snippet of the story of URI with you this morning.
A better day.
You know, when you're entering into something that's so outrageous, you go to bed at night and you're lying there and you're thinking, why did I say yes to that? I don't know anything about Buddhists. I don't know anything about Hinduism. The longer I lay there in February of 1993 and thought about it, I was thinking, come on now. The nations have met every day for 50 years to struggle together for global good. And in the same 50 years, the religions of the world haven't spoken to each other, not for 1 minute.
Bill Swing has always been a maverick. When I met him in 1981, he was doing cutting-edge work with HIV/AIDS here in San Francisco at a time when even doctors were refusing to touch AIDS patients. Bill would go into the hospital. The Bishop of California would go into the hospital and sit with patients with HIV/AIDS and hold their hands and kiss their forehead and just comfort them.
And I was thinking, who's more moral in terms of having a vocation for the world, the nations or religions? And nations aren't very good, but religions are worse.
And so Bill went off on this kind of crazy dream of bringing the religions of the world together to work for peace.
And I said, I commit the rest of my life to being a catalyst for the creation of a united religions. I didn't know how to get there. I didn't know what it would look like. I didn't have any money. But I thought, okay, here goes the adventure.
The story goes that he went around the world to talk to all the great religious leaders of the world to say, come join me. And together we'll bring the religions together and we'll create peace in the world.
So I went to speak with the Pope and the Dalai Lama and Mother Teresa and the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Shankaracharya of Kanchipuram and the Grand Mufti and the Sheikh of Al-Azhar. And I mean, you can't think of anybody I didn't go visit. And I asked him one question, a simple question. Are you willing to deputize a person from your tradition to meet with a deputy from other traditions? And every one of the religious leaders said, absolutely not. And I said, okay, it's not going to happen with religious leaders. And I thought, who's left? It's the grassroots people. And then it dawned on me, they're the only people who could ever make it happen.
They're the only people that could ever make it happen, is the message of what Bishop Swing was trying to bring at the end of that snippet. Because the message of bringing the people together from all over the world requires us to understand the diversity, inclusion, and equity of all people in the work that we do. And it took a lot of effort. It took hundreds of people meeting for years to be able to come together to put together what is the charter of the organization, which got finally established in the year 2000. So we've been going strong in our 22nd year with over 1,000 chapters in over 100 countries. And it becomes very clear that this work is very motivated by a sense of mutual responsibility and a need to improve and repair the world. And that can look like many different things, because that is the power of interfaith work. And that is the power of grassroots organizations who know what to provide to their communities, both spiritually and physically. So with that in mind, I want to be able to introduce you to some of the terms before we get into more of the nitty-gritty of the organization as well. What term that we use for our chapter organizations is Cooperation Circle. We also call it as a CC. That is just simply a name that we give to an organization that joins us. We have what are known as the Global Council of Trustees. These are people from cooperation circles in each region who are elected to be able to discuss the strategy and vision of the global organization. We have what is known as our Global Support Office, which is our international office based in San Francisco, where many of the global staff are located, but also is the founding place for URI. That's where many folks actually help to gather to be able to make the organization that we have today. A regional coordinator, AKA myself, and a number of my colleagues are staff people or a team of people based in each region tasked to support the work of CCs. Our 8 regions include regional coordinators for either countries, regions, or continents with a significant number of CCs. I, for example, working in the US and Canada, work with a little over 90 cooperation circles. And for me as a regional coordinator, that means being able to show up for grassroots communities and providing the support that they may not typically get in the work that they're doing. So that can look like anything from tech support on Zoom to support with ideas around membership increase and fundraising, to thinking about mission and values and bylaws, to thinking about ideas around hosting events. The opportunity of being a regional coordinator means I could be an auxiliary staff person that helps you with being part of this larger network who can support you in the work of this enduring interfaith cooperation. And finally, we have the PPPs, which are our preamble, purpose, and principles for the organization that guide our work, aka our charter, that was created in the 1990s and established in 2000, which helped to create the United Religions Initiative. These are the 14 action areas that we work in. We are very clearly involved in a lot of different ways. And to the point that I was making before about interfaith work not looking the same, it's very much because the nature of interfaith cooperation is very contextual and very nuanced. And it gives every grassroots community an opportunity to be able to prioritize the work that it feels is necessary in improving and healing and maintaining peace and justice in the world. So we have folks that work in human rights, health and social services, interfaith dialogue, community building, youth, environment, and education. There are many groups that focus specifically on uplifting and equalizing women. There are folks who are very politically involved in the work of interfaith cooperation. Many folks are involved in economic justice through poverty alleviation. The general idea of peace building, I think, is one that everyone strives for, but there are folks that explicitly try to achieve peace in ways that are possible. There are folks that work in mediums through publications and YouTube channels and podcasts alike are all available. There are indigenous peoples that are central as a part of this message for how we focus on interfaith cooperation. And there are a number of cooperation circles that uplift indigenous communities and their concerns. And there's a focus on the arts where folks bring in numerous writings, poetry, fashion even, to be able to help show that interfaith cooperation can really be anything that you want to make it. So here in North America, as the main staff person, working with over 90 plus cooperation circles in 2 countries can seem like a really daunting task. I'm not gonna lie, it is. But there's a beautiful thing about it because it allows us to be able to discover the potential of what is possible when communities come together across the states and provinces in our 2 countries to be able to really find ways to be able to make a difference. And that includes finding folks who are coming from various communities to be represented in our global council. We have Fred Fielding, Valeria Vergani, and Geneva Blackmer, who are located in different parts of the country, who are our representatives in the Global Council who help to make sure that North America has a voice in the work of interfaith cooperation. But URI North America is actually unique because we have, in addition to the Global Council, a leadership council that consists of the Global Council members and 7 to 10 other CC members who are involved in the work of trying to think about the strategy and programming for our region in particular. And that includes Felipe Zurita, who's the chair, Artie Turner, who's the vice chair, and Rico Ocampo, who's the treasurer. Within the United States and Canada, we've been doing the work of cooperation circles for the past 10 years. And we also have a unique 501c3 standing that is separate from the international organization that allows us to be able to have a working board and myself as a staff member. So to take it back to the nitty gritty of, To take it back to the nitty gritty of the work of becoming a cooperation circle, the process is very simple. A cooperation circle must have a minimum of 7 members. Because we are trying to create a space where there is an honoring of diversity, we need to make sure that each CC of those 7 members are represented through at least 3 different religious, spiritual expressions, or indigenous traditions. Individuals, associations, and organizations can join a cooperation circle, or you can also have the option of creating your own cooperation circle. So we have a diversity of the kind of groups that join us from around the US and Canada. We have communities like the Charter for Compassion, which is a significant organization that has done a lot of work locally and internationally. That is a cooperation circle. And we have communities that meet the minimum requirement of 7 members who may do monthly meetings on reviewing religious texts and talking about the importance of peace, who may be located in the Midwest to Southern California to up in one of the provinces, who can also be a cooperation circle. So we allow there to be a flexibility about what your group looks like and what your group wants to do, because at the end of the day, your autonomy is what helps us understand the support and needs that you have on the ground. And with that in mind, I believe I am done with my presentation, but I do want to actually make an additional point about some of the stuff that I mentioned today, in that in the work of the United Religions Initiative, it's very clear that each of you has a role. Each of you brings an important part of what can be interfaith cooperation. And we at URI want to make sure that your work can be uplifted and amplified as much as possible. So in the process of joining us as a cooperation circle, or in joining communities that already are cooperation circles, we want to make this an opportunity to make sure that you feel welcomed and that you feel that you can be a part of the difference. And I'm really grateful that I had the time to be able to share on this platform this morning with all of you. So I'll turn it over back to Pam and we will take it from there. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Tahil. And good morning. I can still say good morning to you. So, you know, as we gather, and I've been privileged now to attend a few of these Lenten luncheons, I want to ask us to spend a moment to think about this Lenten season in terms of our interfaith connections. So Lent is a time that is particular in those who follow the path that extends from Ash Wednesday to Good Friday and then on to Easter. And at the same time, if we look at what happens starting this weekend, the Muslim community will enter the month of Ramadan. And the month of Ramadan is the first month of the Muslim calendar, and it involves fasting during waking hours and eating before the sun comes up and again after it is dark in order to sustain. And there are great spiritual principles that go with this incredible practice of fasting all month. In the Jewish community, we will have Passover in the middle of April. It begins on the 15th of April in the evening. And on the second evening of Passover, we begin what's called the counting of the Omer, and we count 49 days to the 50th day of celebrating the receiving of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, on Mount Sinai. And there is a parallel, of course, in Christian tradition, because Pentecost refers to the 50 days. So I've only just recounted traditions in 3 of the streams, Judeo-Christian, Muslim, but I could take the time to talk about Hindu and Sikh and Buddhist and many different faiths. And then when we move into the indigenous communities, many, many more. I want to share that I was once at the Parliament of World Religions. The Parliament of World Religions is not the same as URI, but URI is part of the Parliament of World Religions. And when I got to the page where I needed to choose my religion, there were 225 entries. And I immediately found myself checking for the ones I know. And then I realized, ooh, I need to also take a few moments to think about the ones I don't know, because that's the point of coming together. And so as I open this up, I want to invite everyone to share something from your both faith-based experience and your interfaith experience that feeds you and nourishes you and helps you to carry the message of your faith into the world. And the reason I'm inviting you to do this is because this is a basic activity of URI. You know, Rick has talked about URI, the GCIC is part of URI, and yet when you have your monthly meetings, URI may or may not be mentioned, and yet everything you do at GCIC is the same as everything that's happening in URI. And so part of the beauty of URI is it's different than getting a new in-law. You know, when my sons got married and I got daughters-in-law and inherited their family, our family changed. When URI changes, it's much more transparent and translucent. What happens in the family of each cooperation circle doesn't change much. And so I want to invite us to take this time that we have left to kind of popcorn style go into that place where each of us touches on our faith, goes out into the interfaith experience, and then comes back to our faith to just look at examples of how that feeds us. Does somebody want to go first? Please, Joyce. Oh, I think.
I really wasn't being brave enough to go first, but I'll try. The question seems kind of involved, so I'm not sure if I can.
So let me say it in a more simple way, which is, what is it about your faith that you bring into the interfaith experience, and what do you take back from the interfaith experience? So what do you give out and what do you bring back? Say it that way.
Okay, that helps. Thank you, Pam. I think the idea of being loved by God, feeling loved by God, feeling that I have an example for living in Jesus from my Christian tradition. I think that's what I bring to my life. And my husband and I, Bob and I, have volunteered at a place in Japan called the Asian Rural Institute, which has participants from many different faiths. And so we've had opportunity to have dialogue with different people from the Asian and African countries and Latin America. And one particular example that gave me hope of an interfaith connection was we were having a discussion an interfaith discussion in a group, and there was a participant from Nepal in the group. And when she was talking about her religion, just briefly, she ended it by saying, but at least your God was born in the, she was talking about how cows were very sacred in her country. And then she ended it by saying, but at least your God was born in a cow barn. And I thought, well, there's a connection right there. Thank you.
Thank you. You gave an example of what I wasn't able to articulate so well. Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to share? Please, Stephanie.
Well, I became an interfaith minister in 2005 because I had spent a number of years immersed in the key spiritual practices across faith traditions. And so I came to a point where I knew I belonged to God, but I couldn't choose a religion anymore. I just couldn't. And then I found something called Interfaith and just, I was home. And so that has been my path for as long as I can remember. Another love of mine is mantra and movement. And so just recently, I have formed a sacred dance troupe, and we are moving the mantras and the practices across faith traditions, really embodying them. And it just takes my breath away, that it takes it out of the head and down into the heart and body, and then coming back. There's a unity in our circle that is beyond personality. It unites us in the one that we all pray to and we call by many names. So
Thank you.
that's what's enlivening my heart right now. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else? Maybe one or two more people? Please.
I'll speak to one of my daughters converted to Judaism decades ago. So that was my first interfaith kind of connection. And then, of course, I eventually joined as a representative from our church, the Greater Concord Interfaith Council. And I think the readings and the rituals, well, of course, the Lenten period being a ritual part of our Christian tradition, but seeing the rituals and the readings from other faiths has enriched my life. And so I hope that the sharing does that for everyone who's involved.
Thank you. Anyone else? Suzanne and then Margaret.
I'll just hone in, I think, on the action area that really speaks to me of interfaith dialogue. And that's the thing that draws me to the Unitarian Universalist Church is the welcoming of many perspectives. And that is something that always interests me because we're made up of, as humanity is made up of so many different parts. And to get a fuller understanding of humanity, I think you have to have the perspective of as many parts as possible. And so I'm drawn to that. And my interfaith experience in seminary was in New York City, where there were so many different Parliament of World Religions, you know, ones that I was not familiar with, and cultural paths that I was not familiar with. So interfaith and intercultural dialogue is what interests me the most about interfaith and the work of URI.
Thank you so much. Margaret.
Well, I guess one thing that I bring, you know, from my own Catholic faith is the knowledge that God loves all people, you know, no matter what their faith backgrounds or no backgrounds. And we have a rich heritage of, you know, outreach to people, you know, in this country and also through the missions, you know, overseas in developing countries. And speaking for myself and my own history, my Irish great-great-grandparents, who, came from Portsmouth, and lived here in Concord. During the 1850s, there was a movement they were a party called the Know Nothings, and there was kind of a flare-up of anti-Catholic violence. And the family story goes that they had to leave their home and hide in Bow for a little while, to escape that. And so, when I was invited to come to the Interfaith Council as a representative for my parish, I think that one thing that I experienced was, the love and acceptance, for myself, and also, among all of us, no matter what our faith differences, and that, we can speak together civilly and peacefully and work together on the interests that we have in common, and social justice kinds of needs. And so that has meant a great deal over the years.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else? I don't want to put anybody on the spot. So, I want to take a moment before we close to thank the Greater Concord Interfaith Council for making room for this presentation today as part of the Lenten Luncheon series, and also to the many of you who joined us, or I should say the many of us who joined us on March 22nd as well. I'm serving as a hospice chaplain now, and I saw my first patients in New Hampshire yesterday. And when I finished seeing patients, I picked up the phone as I was driving back, and I called Rick and I asked him to explain if I was in the Greater Concord area. And it turned out, no, I was in the Greater Manchester area. But it just, your beautiful state touched me yesterday as I looked around, and I just really, I want to thank and praise and bless Chris and everybody on the team who makes the luncheons possible, and all of you for your patience in listening to these presentations, and the repetition from the two gives us strength as we go out to continue to make known the message of URI. And if anybody here decides that you want to, as an individual, participate in URI, please reach out to Rick, and Rick will always be able to connect you with Tahil, and that can be possible. So with those words, I want to, Rick, is there anything I missed before we turn it over to Eleanor?
No, I think that's it. Just again, a thank you to the Lenten Lunch Committee for hosting us and URI, and I think we're good. Okay,
and then friends, if we can just, after Eleanor closes us, just to give a moment, Chris, I'm not looking to put you on the spot. But just like Margaret opened, I want to give it back to Chris, because we do have another Lenten Luncheon after this, and so there might be an announcement. So Eleanor, to you, please.
Thank you. Let us join together in prayer. Loving God, you know that just when we begin to think we are making progress, continuing to evolve as human beings, that wars and rumors of wars darken our world. So we are grateful and give thanks for all things that give us hope. New life springing up, longer, brighter days, the inspiration from our faith, especially in this Easter season, and for those who work for peace in our world. We especially find inspiration from Jesus' words, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall inherit the earth." We pray and give thanks for your blessings of strength and courage and vision for all peacemakers. We pray that they may indeed inherit the earth. Amen.
Amen. Chris.
Right. Well, thank you. What a wonderful event. And as I said, Amelia Halstead from First Church will be posting the recording on the YouTube channel. I think she hasn't quite posted last week's yet, but at some point we will have all 5 of them will be posted. Our last program in the series next week will be, our speaker will be Adam Smedberg, who is the community engagement specialist for our Northeast region of Church World Service. And he'll be talking both about the work that Church World Service does with Afghan refugees, which is what originally I had asked him to speak about, and the connections that CWS has to some of the local agencies, but he'll also be talking about what's happening in the Ukraine and Church World Service's work with those people who are just dealing with so much right now. So please join us. As I think Margaret said at the beginning, we are encouraging donations to Bridget's House of Hope, who are our original first speakers, and to Church World Service, either to their general fund or to the Afghan refugee. There are specific funds if you want to direct your thing to a particular place. And I'm going to, as I said, on the website and as well as our Facebook posts and in the emails that many of you received from me over the last couple weeks. The links for doing those donations are in those emails. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye and hope to see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Chris.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
You
Yes.
too.
Thank you.
Tahil?
Here, yes.
I just want to point out, so this